Anybody recording? That's why
Yes,
he's
Paul.
here.
I'm recording.
Paul and Chandler?
I am currently, yeah.
Thank you.
Three weeks ago, right
So the last time we were here, the committee was left with some decisions or things that we had to look over and to contemplate whether we're going to cut down on the building size, whether we're going to move things around. And I think that we all left like a little, not disgruntled, but had a lot to consider. And I went home and I really thought about it. One of the things that's really driving, and I don't want to say driving the project, but one of the things that we had talked about was the possibility of the water. And, you know, we have a big chunk of change that we need to talk about when we start talking about the site plan. But the water is always going to be an issue, whether it's going to be this building or the library if we're going to put there, or the council on aging when we get down to it. So we'll have to put on several wells and make more decisions about fire suppression and wells and drinking water. And we already know that the school has an issue with drinking water, so we could potentially see an issue with drinking water at the police station. So it left me thinking, you know, is the possibility there to continue the water line, whether it be down Chase Road or whether it be down Chipaway Road, and that would save us on the well. I mean, it's not a ton of money, but I think that when you move to think about other buildings there and how you have to treat the water and things like that, I think it makes sense. And I don't think that it's a water department issue. I do think that from my perspective, it's a town issue, because those are town-owned, those would be town-owned buildings, the school is a town-owned facility, and I think that that's something that we need to really consider and contemplate. That was one thing. I also think that the school should pick up half of the cost of whatever we do, because the school's also going to be using it too. And I've had sidebar discussions with people that are more knowledgeable than me, and I'm taking it from a practical point of view. But I've talked to the water department, talked to Bob Kelleher about this, and I see it as a win-win for both this project, for future projects, for the water department, and for the town overall. And this would cut down on what we need to do for the project as well. So I wanted to hear from the water department. I know that I threw that out to you the last time I met with you, and I said, here, this is what I'm thinking. And I haven't had a chance to talk to Taylor or, you know, Bob Kelleher or Andy about this. This is something that, like I said, came from sidebar conversations, came from looking at the site plan, knowing how much money we had to throw into the well and other things, and knowing that this committee was like now saying, wait, this is the building we really want, and now we have to cut back on it because of things within the site that we might not be able to do otherwise. So I'd like to hear from the water department. I'd like to hear from Andy, Bob Kelleher, and Taylor, and anybody else on the committee that wants to speak.
Okay, well, from the water department, we'd be glad to help you out and do whatever we have to do, as long as it's a town project and not a water department project. We did, I think, Kevin, you gave some figures
I did, Bob.
to Lisa on what it would cost on the various directions. And, you know, we could pick up some customers along the way, whichever way it comes. So, you know, we're always happy to have added customers.
Okay, I'll just pass those out.
Andy, did you get a value on the well, potential cost?
Yeah. I didn't give my hand out yet. But anyways, if you add up everything, I had to put back a little because it affects the fire suppression system.
Yeah.
As well as just the well and the domestic water. But it's looks to be somewhere, you know, 190 plus, as far as savings for the police station.
190,
$190,000.
what?
That's on the low end. That,
Bring the water.
If you bring the water line down?
that's what you would save on the construction of the police department
Okay,
with the well and the fire suppression
Take it out.
issues. Yes, and then most likely, that would get you out of the fire pump. Never say never, but most likely that get you out of the fire pump, and then you would save all those yearly inspections and maintenance, which could be in the order of $10,000 a year.
Is that fire pump in that 190?
Yes, it is.
Okay, 'cause that's a big
Now,
number.
here's the deal. Going back through with a fine-tooth comb, I think the fire suppression issues in the estimate are a little on the low side. But you need to know what would pull out of that estimate would be about 190, and that would be the absolute bare minimum. I think the town savings on the station in the end would end up 200 plus.
Yeah, because the cistern is a high-risk component of the project.
Yes,
So there's a likely overrun on that potentially, like buoyancy slabs, things like that. So-
exactly.
So you omit that risk out of your equation also.
That's good, decent.
And that doesn't even get into testing the domestic,
Right.
because we can't do that until we have the water. Let's say you needed one heck of a treatment system. You know, you could be looking at $250,000 by the time you were done. You know, if you did bring town water to the police station, savings.
Well, we wouldn't need a treating system if we went to the,
I'm talking about if we had the well.
Right.
The
oh,
well.
the well, oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
The other well over there is, they have trouble at the school, so I imagine they're gonna have trouble over there.
I would agree, Paul.
And that's not only first cost, that's to maintain the water also is quite expensive.
Paul?
The shortest line, the water commission and Kevin looked at a number of ways to bring the water. The shortest one is down Chase Road, but picking it up at Brayley Road. Brayley Road, we could bring down a 10-inch line, because that's what's down there. And that certainly would have plenty of water for whatever you do down there.
Well, not to interrupt, it's a 12-inch line on
It's,
Brayley.
it is not, it's a
It's a
12-inch.
12-inch on Brayley.
Okay, so that's even better.
10-inch on Chipaway, 12-inch on Brayley.
And that's boosted by our pump station.
It is, so we have 5 pumps.
5 pumps.
And we boost that line.
Yep. I would imagine there's enough pressure there. We had a hard time, just to give an anecdotal, Michael Pillarilla and I, we opened up 2 hydrants, we took the steamers off 2 hydrants and opened it up, we couldn't get the 3rd pump to come on. So, I would think, obviously you have to study it, but I would think that there'd be enough volume, the rate would be there, so.
For the pressure for the fire, for the sprinklers, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother, depending on the height of the building and that kind of, but yes, there wouldn't be a significant head loss over the system because we're adding another 13,000 feet to the pipe. Be sufficient, and we already have an existing pump station that would be on that line. It's also on the Chipaway line, but it's significantly longer from there, and it's a 10-inch line.
There's also 2 bigger, larger developments on, off of Chase Road that might want to pick up the water as well, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's, but again, I just kept it to, as far as cost, linear feet on the major artery to Memorial Drive.
Right, and I think that to me is more town issue, you know what I mean?
Yep.
That's where I was coming from.
Yeah.
I would think you would have more customers coming up Chipaway Road, because again, you got Proprietor's Acres, which is huge, and you get that other development going in. Although I understand that might be downsized to 25 units.
I counted the, not to interrupt that, but I counted the number of residential and commercial properties along both routes. And again, this is an approximation, I did it rather quickly, but approximately, if you use Chipaway, there's approximately 130 residences and/or businesses that are directly on the road. That is excluding Jackie Lane and Carpenter Lane and to Brad's Point, that subdivision. And there's approximately 100 on Chase, again, excluding any subdivisions that might be off of that. So, just to,
Yeah.
so it's about the same. I mean, there's a 20, 30,
The nitty-gritty of the water details and which line you bring really doesn't make a preference to me. That's more of a, I would think, a water department issue or decision. I just want to make sure that if we do this, the water department is on board, and then also where we are with this project and how we get both to meld together to make sure that we don't tie up anything. You know what I mean? I'd hate to have a station built, and we're not supposed to do that anyway, but have a station built and then have no water, or, you know, or, so the both would have to work
The
simultaneously.
Chase Road line is the
Mhm.
cheapest. It's 2.9 miles, that's 2.9 million.
Right.
That's the
We
water.
got the water, the railroad.
Then you have to go under the track stop.
Which is a $200,000
Yeah.
cost.
I allotted for 200,000, Bob could probably speak better to this, there is no sleeve over there. They've just done the railroad improvements, it's a mystical number, if you will, but 200,000-300,000, still cheaper than the other.
Yeah.
But it adds an added layer of bureaucracy, if you will, permitting.
Geometrically, it's a nice crossing for Jack, because,
Yeah, it does, it has that little hump,
So-
right, right.
yeah, so, horizontal drill it, and
Right.
save a truckload of money, if it works.
I don't think that this should be on the homeowner, again, I can't emphasize that enough. We're talking about looking at the estimated, debt service. We're looking at the high end, 223 for the first year, and then working our way down. I looked up, or I had just look up a 30-year estimate and a 20-year estimate. But I have to say, that, you know, the town has been really fiscally conservative in its approach on things. And, we're looking pretty good right now that, again, we took a big chunk of money to pay down, our debt on the bridges. And I think that, if we ever see the opportunity again, we can do the same thing and pay down this as well. So I just wanted a general consensus on where we're going with this. Bob, do you have anything else to say?
No, I'm not intimate with the vote portion of it,
Mhm.
but I mean, there's certainly a property value benefit to the people that we go across, as well as an insurance reduction for their property insurance. And I know that the ground's all hard, so as they have septic issues, the water line alleviates some stress for them also. So for the people we go by, it's a big win, I would think. I mean, the timing of the thing certainly has to work,
Yeah, I agree.
so,
Yeah, that's vital.
yeah.
you know,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Considering, the bid process and what we have to go through,
Yeah.
the sooner this committee makes a
So you
decision,
decide, yeah.
the sooner we can,
It might
Go
help you in the
from
total,
there.
I would think
Right.
it would help you in the total vote, because you're, so if the impact is what, 200 homes maybe, with the, for her vote? I would think that would help you a lot with the vote.
yeah, I don't know how they're planning on funding it, I don't know. But I just know, if you're looking for the water department's help, we've seen how long it takes for these types of projects. I think at best case scenario, you're looking at about a year. From the decision date of, we're gonna do this, get an engineered plans, send it out to bid, pick a bidder, borrow the money, and execute the plan. If that falls in line with the timing of the new construction of the police station, that's, again, something you guys need to consider.
Well,
Don't you have to go to a town meeting vote?
for,
Debt exclusion, we would.
To
for a
borrow,
debt exclusion, not for this,
You wouldn't have to? So we were gonna pay out of,
out of taxation.
and that would speed up the process.
Absolutely. We need a debt exclusion for the borrowing, because it's a debt exclusion, so we need a debt exclusion for the police project. And as you know, we're trying to whittle that down to a number that's feasible to get passed.
Okay, because if you don't have to go to a debt exclusion on this project, that certainly can speed things up.
On the water project.
We could also come up with a betterment scheme too, that could lay out, so there's no fee if you don't tie in, but if you do, at the point you do tie in, there would be, a connection fee, as it were, $5,000 betterment, or whatever the number is that the water department figures out to go back and pay this down.
Because one of my concerns that I had when we first started talking about this was that if you're going out for 2 debt exclusions,
No.
you could have an adverse impact on.
Oh,
on the
absolutely.
police station.
That's why I said one has to, it's either you go out for one all together and you tie this into the project, or you keep this separate, you pay out of taxation, like I said. We've been putting money into capital and stabilization over the course of the last 3 or 4 years. You know, we're in good standing, so I think that as we see more business continue to come in, we can probably set more money aside to make sure that this is paid for.
And there might be money in your budgets that may not be needed by DEP that could help fund some of this too. That 600,000 that was appropriated.
But like
So far,
I,
so good with DEP.
Right.
yeah. but
Knock on wood.
Right.
We haven't got the final.
I know, we haven't
I
done the
was gonna
final
say,
figure yet,
do you
so.
want me to give you the update now on that? It's good news, I can wait.
No, go ahead, I'll take good news.
I received a phone call from DEP today. We're getting what's called a friendly administrative consent order, which means we entered into negotiations with them to come up with an amicable solution. If what the gentleman told me is true, and I'm picking up tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, they are going to, because we've been in compliance, and again, we met the 4th quarter compliance, allow us to continue running the way we are, some increased testing as far as frequency, disconnect our existing filtration site completely, take it offline, so that there is no physical connection. That's what they want. And if we are to stay in compliance for the next 2 years, calendar years 18 and 19, then we'd be out from under this ACO, and we'd be just having to do regular compliance. So I think kudos to everybody, water commissioners, our review engineers, town leaders for getting this through on town meeting floor. They saw that we were serious about this, and we've met our goal so far, so I'm happy to report that.
Yeah, it was an interesting meeting, and all worked.
Yep.
It's kind of interesting going up there, isn't it?
Yeah.
The other thing, important thing, is the water line to service this area is coming up
Off
the
New
Bedford
Bedford, so
side.
we won't even
There's
have
nothing
that
on
problem.
this, there's
Yeah.
no issues.
Not only
Not at
that,
all.
but no matter which way you decide to go later in the future, you could tie it in the future, whether if you ever run another line, either on Chase Road or the other
You
way,
can move it around.
you could loop it.
Yeah.
And that would make it ideal.
So if you're using a $3 million number, just because it's 2.9 and say $3 million. for over-
2.9 sounds better.
Yeah. Realistically, it's probably 3.2, but we'll stay with 3 million. And the school picks up half of it, so we're at 1.5. So we're really, between capital stabilization and regular stabilization, we're pretty on the numbers. And then there's other incomes that could come in.
Yeah.
It's a very doable number.
It's a doable thing.
You offset 200,000 for fire suppression. Now you're down to 1.3 million-ish, 1.2 million.
Can you get the school to kick in half?
That's
It's gonna come out of ours anyway,
Oh.
at the end of the day. It's our
Shell
fund
game,
anyway.
really.
It's just, yeah, it's just a shell game. We're just gonna move.
Yep.
But, I did approach the superintendent and talk to him about it, just as like, hey, this is gonna happen more than likely, so I just want you to be aware. And he was not against it, so.
That's always good.
From a construction perspective, a year out wouldn't hurt us. Our schedule is going to be pushed a little bit anyway because of some additional decisions we had to make in terms of where the budget's falling and our square footage. So if it were to be pushed out a year, we'd probably be at the beginning to middle of construction. So it might even work out coordination-wise, based on where we are with, moving into construction documents. So,
We need to work out.
yeah.
Do you think that that would be just, we would have to have more meetings, more coordinating meetings?
Yeah, and then we just make sure the wording in the documents is, set forth in a way that all coordination is to be done with the new line that's coming in. We can put drawings in for the new line and, make sure all the information's there so that, the contractor's comfortable with it. But certainly it can be done.
On the nuts and bolts, would you make the taps? If you knew it's coming, you make all the taps and you leave them so the connection's made
Yeah,
on property,
Exactly.
not in building.
yeah.
So is there anything you want us to do at this moment? Are we just gonna kind of stay in limbo until, if we have to go to get all the engineering done for the line, the sooner we get started, the better, because that's, a pretty good job to go.
Sure. I think that's a committee decision that needs to be made. Maybe it can be made tonight, but yeah, the sooner they can make a decision and move on it, then it certainly helps our schedule knowing that's in play.
Once there's a definite decision,
Mhm.
then we gotta get a hold of the railroad, because that's gonna, we gotta make
Oh,
sure
yes.
it's,
Only if you go Chase.
if we go
Right.
chase.
Chipaway doesn't cross the railroad, so.
No, that's right, but you're getting the bigger line, you're getting a 12-inch line
Yeah,
rather
I
than
agree.
10, and it's less distance, so you're gonna have a larger
On Chase,
volume.
you got a 12-inch on Chase, not Chipaway?
You got a 10 on
10 on
Chipaway,
10 on Chipaway.
and you got a 12-inch.
Well, it comes down Brayley, it terminates at Brayley with some gate valves, but I believe, well, I know that Brayley's 12. What
So
that
I-
intersection looks like,
At Chase intersection.
Yeah,
Again,
Brayley's 12.
That's a
again,
lot
I
more
think,
water.
I think that's more of a water decision, a water board decision, on which way you wanna come down. I think that, 3.4 to 2.9, it sounds a lot better at 2.9 than it does 3.4, I'm not gonna lie. And I just think that looking at the numbers, and I gave everybody a packet, the numbers are doable. Like I said, the highest, we're looking at 232, and we're spending down from that, so.
Bob, I use $200 a linear foot, that's a,
I think so, it's,
and that includes engineering costs,
yeah,
but that's a.
yeah. Do you guys have to go out to bid for an engineer?
Not for an engineer. We have a service contract with an engineer because there's a provision in Mass General Law that
So you could
allows
just
us.
give it to the
We could
guy.
use it, yeah, whoever they so choose, if it was the ones that we use now. It's just a matter of a phone call, and I'm sure that they'd be willing to get started quickly, whichever route we choose. It's just gonna be a matter of how we pay for them to do that work.
Yeah, if we can save some money too if they use plastic pipe versus metal,
That's up to you guys,
Yeah.
Yeah, so which we would do, there's no
What do you think in
reason.
your experience, Bob?
yeah. I think plastic's superior if it's put in right.
I do too. Okay.
Doesn't rust.
Right, doesn't rust, has more deflection, easier to get around things,
You just gotta
easier
put
to
it- you just gotta
install.
put it in right.
Yep.
and it's easier to lay in.
Yeah, I mean, two guys can pick a pipe up rather than having a machine.
Yeah, put it in right, you
Yeah.
can ruin it like anything,
Well, right,
but it's not gonna,
right.
lower friction factor.
Mhm.
So I think we'll go on with the rest of our meeting, and then we'll look at where our budget is from that standpoint, and then I think we can make, at least, if not a formal vote, a direction.
Are we contingent on approval of the project at town meeting? So if the police building doesn't go through at town meeting, then
Yeah.
neither does the water line.
That's a decision for the whole committee.
When would be are you gonna wait for the annual town meeting?
No, this will be its own town
You're
meeting.
doing
Okay.
special
Yeah.
this, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so then that would still give plenty of time to.
Yeah.
It's gonna be this
So-
winter.
It's February, late January, I think we're kind of playing with those 2 dates right now, so, or those 2 months right now. And
We also need to have an election after this. You missed yesterday's meeting, but there's some deadlines for an election for the marijuana, for different things, so
but that's also a decision that,
that has to be before, I think, March, what was it, March? There was something.
We have to have
down
30, I believe it's 36 days, 35 days.
but we
Right,
have,
March.
right, but we may not do both of them at the same time. I mean, it may be too much to handle for one town meeting, to talk about marijuana and a new police.
No, we don't need that for marijuana. All we need for marijuana is an election,
As the election.
a ballot.
Just a question,
So if there's a debt exclusion, it'd probably be on the same ballot as the marijuana or as the,
just a question. I think the idea of the water thing is a wonderful idea because it's gonna serve the town in this whole area up here because of future expansion. But the board came to us and asked us about this. We had no idea that this was gonna happen. I mean, is everybody here in favor of this? Or do we have
No,
any
the
dissent?
board didn't, I did.
You did, okay.
Right, so,
Yeah.
that was just me having sidebar conversations with the water department and other people
Can I
here.
ask, what's the rest of the board's
So,
feeling?
no, so this would be a a police station committee decision,
Can the police station committee decision make that decision?
make the decision
Yeah,
on whether we
committee.
wanna go with water, yeah,
Okay, you can, okay.
yep. But the board of selectmen would have to vote
Yeah,
to
that's,
fund it.
so what I'm asking is, what's the
But-
feeling of the rest of the board? I mean, are you guys interested in doing this or
I
not?
think that-
I wanna shake down the rest of the numbers here and
Right.
see what the numbers gonna shake out like, what the savings are really gonna be, but
What might be alternative funding also, would be something that I'd be interested in.
absolutely.
And we're not even, we'll be
Not even close.
discussing that, no, we are close. but we'll be discussing that at the
So-
end, towards the end of the
that's
meeting.
nothing, there's nothing we have to worry about until we
No.
hear from you guys.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
No,
Should be a vote tonight, though.
yeah, we
Should
should be, all right tonight.
If I could, Lisa, just
Yeah.
something, if we're gonna be tearing up the road, Bob, you would, again, I'm gonna defer to you on this. Would it be something to consider, just even putting the sewer main?
I was gonna say that.
Way to drive on.
I just worry about Mission Creep and. is
No,
it
no,
gra- is it
I do
gravity,
too.
is it force?
Yep,
We're
yep.
already creeping pretty far.
Very
I think it's
well,
a
but-
huge benefit to the police station.
Sure,
The
sure.
annual operating
Yeah.
cost is gonna be less, you're not
Yeah.
gonna pump in a 30,000 gallon cistern.
But where are you
Yeah.
gonna dump the sewage?
No, I'm just saying for future, if we're gonna tear open Chase
You're saying
Road
dry
or
line.
Chipaway Road,
Just
we
put in a
put-
line in case.
right, we put the force, like we have in South Main Street, put a
Right.
force main in, so should development come
Yeah.
along, my only thought was if you're gonna tear open the road, that's when,
The
but,
engineering for the sewer is more complex, whereas South Main, you had a destination to pump
Yep.
to, here you don't.
You don't.
So, what would you do, gravity? And I think, I would assume you're gonna try to put it in the layout, out of the pavement, for the majority. Which will reduce
the
your
water
cost,
line, you mean?
if you can.
Yeah, on Chase Road, the layout is so narrow, you're gonna be tearing up asphalt. I mean, that's that simple. Chipaway maybe,
The highway superintendent was talking about using chapter 90 money to re-asphalt Chase Road next year, so we obviously need to give him a heads
Right.
up.
and if we're gonna try to utilize something like a Mass Works grant,
You
or,
should really go for every grant. So
Right.
if you guys decide to do this, you should immediately get hold of the DEP, find out what's available for grants, because you're improving infrastructure
Mhm.
for a lot of people, so,
And the water, they're all in favor of
yeah.
us giving people water.
so
Maybe, I don't know.
the timing's gonna be delicate. We really need to be cognizant.
Yeah, I
Those are all the
agree.
stops on grants.
I agree, like, we're gonna have to have multiple meetings just to make sure we're all on the same page at the same time.
And digging around here, the one thing I know with digging around here is you better be prepared, because it's Boulder City,
Yes.
you know, when you're digging here.
And ledge.
And
Especially if it's
That's why they have dynamite.
That's the
Yeah.
end.
But I
That's
think
the
it was
engineer's
important to hear from the
problem.
water commission, just to make sure that you guys are on board, and what your feelings were, whether it be Chase or Chipaway, but I'm hearing Chase from you guys.
Well, you're gonna chase from me because it's the shortest distance,
Okay,
and it's a larger line, more volume
Yep.
of water. To me, that makes
the
sense.
best sense.
that's fine, okay, that's fine. So now we know the number is gonna be more like 2.9. Perfect, thank you so much.
Okay, good.
Sorry, Paul, you have to stay.
I know you want to close.
Thank you, guys.
I'll make a
Thank you.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Water commissioners are now adjourned.
So I'll keep this going so you guys can hear the
Yeah.
rest of
You do a good job.
it. Thank you. I get extra pay for that, right?
Yes,
So-
more money. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, guys.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks you also.
Thank you.
Happy turkeys.
Gobble, gobble.
The turkey's a leak. Oh.
I have a meeting.
Okay, we're done.
All right, I'm gonna hand it over to Andy. We have, Andy's developed some different schemes to go over, basically, just to pile on to what you said, Lisa. I think when we left last time, we all really, we're gonna look at possibly some value engineering. How do we bring this number in line? Do we look at a two-story option? And I think there was a kind of a different feel from everybody on that. So what Andy's gone back is he's kind of looking at 3 different schemes. So really, we can ultimately give them direction. So that's the plan for today, and we'll talk about that in terms of what that does to our budget schedule, so on and so forth.
Could I ask you a question? Last meeting, you talked about the land, the water, and so forth. Did you guys?
Yep, we have an update on perk testing and geotech.
Okay, because that was a big concern, I think, at the last meeting.
Yes, it was. That's why we held off, so that we would have the results for that today.
Is everybody coming home?
Yeah,
Oh, boy.
Andy's here already,
Nice.
but Andy has to work tonight.
I just need one of each, Andy. I just gave all mine up.
Bob, did you have one?
I have a plan, I don't have the narrative. I guess I.
There you go.
Plan. Thank you.
So this cover sheet is a summary of topics of what we've done since the last time we met and what I'd like to accomplish this evening. So, on November 2nd, we went out and we did some site exploration. We dug some test pits. It was a beautiful day. It was actually nice to be out there. The highway department dug a series of pits for us, and we accomplished three major objectives with those pits. Number one, we studied the structural integrity of the soil we have out there. Two, we established a water table, which is crucial to this project. And three, we got an official perk rate from the town. The Board of Health agent was out there. So, if you look at this sheet, I say the purpose of this meeting is to present to the committee the summary of findings obtained from the information collected during the soil testing operation that took place on November 2nd, 2017, and to receive direction from the building committee as to how to proceed on the design from here. If you flip to the next page, 3 pages in, this shows a test pit location. If you orient yourself with the north arrow, you can see Memorial Drive and Chase Road, the corner there. You can see the footprint of the building that we've been developing. And you'll see these rectangles that have like a checkerboard pattern hatch. Okay? Test pits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Can everybody see those? Those were performed with the geotechnical engineer as to the structural integrity inside the building and in the parking lots. Test pit 101 and 102 was done in the leach area. That was done with the civil engineer to get a perk rate with the Board of Health. And we also did a 103 and 104 on the opposite corner of the leach field. But we didn't end up having to log those because the perk went okay with the first 2 pits. And we just observed the pit and it was more of the same. So that's not showing up on here. And we didn't take soil logs on those either. So does everybody understand those are pits we physically dug? And then on 101 and 102, we did perks in those 2 pits with the Board of Health. So, one note on those, if we move forward with those schemes, those pits will have to be officially located by a surveyor. I located them with a 300-foot tape measure off telephone poles and head walls out on the street. I know it's going to hit, but the civil engineer needs those to be picked up by a surveyor. Maybe we can save it for when we have multiple things for him to do out there. That's what that note is about right there. From this testing, we have verified 3 important criteria. Structural characteristics of the soil. In general, and we have an initial report from the geotech, structurally it's satisfactory. And we can go over the recommendations from LGCI, geotech engineer. Like this gentleman said here, a lot of boulders, but every pit was completed with a standard backhoe, and we were able to complete all the pits. And in general, the soil is satisfactory structurally. Location of the water table, which is now identified by modeling rather than observed water. This was my biggest fear for that site, because high water table equates to fill. The water table was at 4 feet below the surface, which is about where I expected it. I was hoping it to be 5, but it was 4. So what that did is it's going to make for a raised septic bed, which, sorry, today is more the norm than not, but we took this information and did a design, so I can show you exactly what I'm talking about. So we'll hold off on that one, and we'll go through it on the drawing. And the perk rate, number 3, which was 22 minutes per inch. Not real quick, but good enough. And what was interesting is, during the perk test, we also conducted conversations with Derek, the Board of Health agent. And this was real productive because we were gonna have to set a meeting up with him anyways to establish the perk rate, or the design rate, the flow rate for the building. Police stations are not spelled out in regulations as you design for this. You establish it through study and talking with the Board of Health agent. What we agreed on is, we didn't have the luxury here of a water meter at the police station, because we could actually have studied how much flows through the station. So we used data collected at a station in Orleans. They interpolated it and they came up with a flow per day per person. And we used 32 people for that number in the calculation. We got to 32 from the studies we did in the beginning for the programming, at the beginning of the project. And so that came out to a very reasonable rate for a police station. It's right where we hoped we would be, and the Board of Health agent has agreed to it. I'll go over more of that too when we get into the drawing. It came down to 23 gallons per day per person, with 32 people. Using this information, Nathan Ketchell of GGD Inc., consulting civil engineer, updated the septic and grading design, and on the septic, the net result is as follows. The leaching field, the total septic system got more expensive because we had to add a pump chamber. So there were adderways, there were adders and deductions, and the net was $27,000 to build the septic system as designed now. I'll show it to you on the sheet. So let me get into that right now. A few copies that I can send this one down here.
The boring log looks pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, those ones fine. There's a few more sets here. They got a bigger watermark on them, but you can still look at it. Let's look at sheet C 2.01 first. That has the most info on it. So if we look to the area of the leach field, you see test pit 101 and 102? Yeah, those have to be flipped.
Yeah, these aren't right?
Yeah, that has to be flipped to C 2.01. The numbers are over here, Paul. Yeah, it's right in the middle. C 2.01.
Yeah.
You think Nathan thought we got the point with those watermarks? So, you can see where test put 101 and 102 is. You can see we hit the 4 corners of the leach field. There's 103 and 104 that I spoke about. It didn't show up on the other plan. So here's where we did our perks. And here's the new leach field design. The leach field actually got smaller. Even though we had a slow rate, we were assuming a larger flow when we were just guessing before in the preliminary. So the leach field actually got smaller. It, however, got raised. So, if, holding this building at 179.5, as it was, the top of the mound is about 4 feet higher than the building slab for this area here. You see these contour lines? Those are lines. So it would slope up to about this high and then slope back down. The sewage would flow out to a 2,500 gallon tank, flow to a manhole, then into a 2,000 gallon pump chamber, into a, and then out to another valve chamber and into a D box and then into the ground. You know, a very common type of system that you would see today around town. I was hoping that it would be a little lower, but again, not the end of the world. These are official perks. It wasn't just a test. We made it official perk with the Board of Health. So this is information we can actually run with if we're okay with it and do the final design. So that's what happened with the septic system and how that shook out. Any questions on that? If you want to, if you flip the page.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
Do we absolutely need the pump system?
You know, the only way out of it would be as if you found a way, if you raise the whole site. With,
or did further investigation to try to more quantify the water table.
yes.
And have a positive result from that investigation.
What Bob's getting at is they do a water table with chroma now. He gets in the hole with a chalk.
Color of the soil, yes.
And he, by color, he identifies where water has been.
Did you get
So
water
what
on
can
that
happen
long,
is,
long too?
what can happen is.
There was no visible water anywhere all day.
Soil that's oxidized from water that went across it and went down, as opposed to water that's coming out.
Yeah.
So it gets, so the question is, you could spend a lot of money and get the same answer, or even a worse answer.
Yeah.
But, I don't have a feeling either way at the moment. I was a little disappointed with the water table reading. The soils were better than I thought, so. Sometimes a bigger machine gives you a better picture, and you can get a better, but it is what it is. We got done for Zip, right, so.
And he did do the chroma test in the 4 pits.
Yeah.
So he went into 4 pits.
What's the longevity of a pump?
There would be 2 pumps in that tank.
Yeah.
So they would alternate, and if they're done properly, 10 years. Simple, few hour job to swap them.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well,
The
many
pros-
systems
one of
are
the pros
pumped
to it is the fields tend to last longer. When they tend to hold up well.
That was going to be my next question. How do you maintain them? But if it sounds fairly simple,
The pumps are very common. I mean, it's not an unusual thing. I would speculate 25% of the systems in the town probably have pumps, or will have pumps as they get renewed.
And the maintenance is, you pump the chambers once in a while, you have them sucked out, like you pump a tank. Other than that, you don't do
But it
anything.
has, the way it works is one pump always alternates, so it lets you know that you have a bad one, so you have time to replace it.
Yeah.
And then we would design the tank so there's additional headroom, so that if both pumps failed, there'd be no crisis. You'd have plenty of time. We could actually say you have X days of headroom, and then that's before you have a pump truck come. But we could make that decision. We could say you want 3 days, 5 days of headroom, so nothing happens. Just keep on going.
And you get a warning back in the police station that something's
usually
had an
ground
error.
stuff flowing back.
Well, no,
Yeah, no,
before that happens, yeah, you'd have an alarm, so.
Yeah, you have an alarm when the pump goes bad, but again, it's not a crisis. You just can't ignore it, but the headroom that you have above the operating level is the key.
I see they seem to be going in more and more.
Oh, yeah.
You would have to raise the building site considerably
To get,
away with that.
yeah, it wouldn't be advisable. I wouldn't advise it, but that's
No.
the absolute
Yeah,
way.
that's costly, very
Yes.
costly.
Yes, and it would also make some uncomfortable slopes in the front. So on sheet C 3.01, we strip away all the underground stuff And you can see how the contours work. You have quite a bit of space between the building and the raised system, and then you would just see where the site would raise up in that area.
Which, I don't mean to take you off track, Andy, but
Yeah.
I know we're gonna talk about, you know, the 2-story, the 1-story, the attic. Which one is this designed for, or will this system work for any of those
Yeah,
scenarios?
this would be all. This
Okay.
would be all concepts.
Good,
This is about where you'd end up.
yeah, good.
This would be, this was pretty final, you know, we got an official perk and water table
Yeah,
and, you know, and we involved the Board of Health agent on the flow rate. So that was the other variable we had to nail down, which we did.
You can't swap it to the other side, you get high contours because of the setbacks, is that why you're not going to?
You'd still be pumping,
You'd still be pumping.
because the system would end up going uphill.
Yeah.
You-
I'm just looking at raised, but you still have to pump either way.
Yeah,
You just want to raise the system.
correct.
Does that take from parking space that you had?
No, I had, you know, this is like playing pool, I kinda left myself well. We had located the field in an area where if it raised, it wasn't gonna change.
That
the
was
rest.
just green space anyway.
Yes.
The tables were consistent also, they're following the progress
Okay.
because of that oxide, the way that they're determining.
So
They were
we-
consistent, but the topography higher here, lower there, it would be graded that way, so you're saying
But
that
you'd still
your
be
table
above
would be
that.
higher
It'd be
here
four- it'd be
because
the
it's
same,
up-
4
uphill.
feet. In other words, if the table's 4 feet deep here or here, the
Right.
system's still gonna be 4 feet above the ground. So
Okay.
this would
It's-
actually create a more difficult situation because you'd be above the building.
Because you want.
I mean, you'd be way above the building.
It's following a certain layer of soil,
Yeah, it's following its.
and the layering is consistent with the grade.
Yeah.
So if the system's here, and now I'm going back up towards the school, the layer goes up with the grade.
It's right on the plane.
You don't know for sure. Soils were consistent and the tables were consistent. So whatever's confining that, whether it's an oxide.
You're hitting the layer there, and
Yeah,
it's just right on the
but
layer.
it's not,
Profound.
it's profound, yeah, that's the right word. It's not profound. It's a subtlety. If it was a private job, I'd probably go out there with a big machine and dig the place up and try to get it
Fine.
on the table.
Well, that was kind of the genesis of the question.
But the holes are very consistent.
Yeah.
So the last sheet in that packet, which should be C0.06. This gives a section through the leaching field and the trenches, and the 2,500 gallon septic tank, the D-box, and here's the pump chambers that we're talking about, right down there. It's a concrete chamber with pumps set into it.
You're doing one chamber, or you're doing two separate chambers with a redundancy?
Redundancies inside this tank.
So it's one chamber with a redundant system?
Duplex system.
Okay.
These would have guide rails,
No,
hinge
well,
hatch, right. Easy swap. Okay, there you go. Oh, that's the valve chamber. Oh, that's the-
well, they've seen it with the two separate 1,000 gallon chambers.
Yeah, that's to have a pre-settling chamber, but we've got settling occurring back in the prior tank.
So you're gonna settle out
See, we have a two-component, two-chamber.
So you're settling there, flowing over to the other side.
Primary treatment, secondary,
Yeah.
and then, so you're real clear by the time you get there.
Yep, that makes sense.
Any more questions? So the septic mystery is gone. My next paragraph deals with what you already talked about, also being considered this time, possibility of extending the town public water system to service the Freetown Elementary School and a new police station. This would eliminate need for a well and a 30,000 gallon cistern, and most likely the need for a fire pump. I say most likely because I don't want to jinx myself. Sometimes you need a fire pump, even with a town water system. But that also has to do a lot with density also, and our density is not going to be very heavy in a police station. So I don't wanna guarantee
Yeah,
it.
if it's a 12-inch line too, that helps.
If we did need a pump, it would be an end pump, not an suction pump. That's a
Yes.
crazy device that you never want to own.
So I went into the estimate and pulled out what I was absolutely comfortable with, and that was $190,000. I believe that that's what comes out of the SD estimate. In the end, the savings are gonna be more, because I think the SD estimate is a little light on the cistern installation and some things that would come up with this fire pump and whatnot. But that's what would come right out of the estimate, and this is closer to 198, but I had to put a few things back, like, they had some 6-inch line already, but I figured it wouldn't be enough to get back to the street. I figured this would be a 6-inch line off the water line feeding it. And then, of course, you'd have a treatment system if you go with a well.
Sure.
And that's not even in the SD estimate yet,
Yeah.
from what I can see,
And
so.
then the current cost of running that.
Right, so the savings are 200 plus in the end. But for now, if you want to compare it back to our estimate, I would use the 190. But in the end, it will vet out at 200 plus, when all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed.
Andy, excuse me.
Yes.
Just so the 190, that's without the cistern, or is that with the cistern?
Now, the cistern's gone, yeah,
That would be,
Yeah.
system's gone.
yeah, that wipes everything out, and now you got a 6-inch line coming in for your fire, and you take it from there.
Okay, so that's, the water, the figure that you're just saying is with public water, no cistern, hopefully no pump, but that's a question.
Right.
to the well.
We'll probably gain some real estate inside the floor plan.
Yes, yeah, you would get, we had made a room for the fire pump in the well, and the deep well.
No more well.
Yeah. That shows up on the floor plan that you have in front of you, by the way. If you, it's right, says wet well, and that is a door to the outside.
Not piece of construction too, because it's below your footings. Right. Right, so that's a big, if you try to eliminate the most difficult part of your construction, that's the guy right there.
And you know what, Bob, you bring up a good point. When I went back through, and that's why there's some design contingencies in the SD, we would have to do something like dropping our footings in that area.
Well, no, it takes a risk out of this whole project. I mean, if you point to something I want to get rid of, that I can't control the cost, that's the guy right there.
The wet one.
Yeah.
All right, well, we all set on that topic?
I'm sorry,
What's that?
on what, on this?
On the water and the well?
Yep, I'm all set. Anybody have questions on that? No?
Okay, so let's jump over to the soil testing, the structural testing. So flip to the second page of the soil testing, which I think is 4 pages in. Right after that site plan that shows where the test pit locations are. So the geotech on site analyzed all the pits shown on that site plan. Test pit 1 through test pit 6, and then they also analyzed 101 and 102, where we do our perk test. This table is just a little summary. It shows what pit it is, the ground surface elevation, that's before you start digging, and then the bottom of the forest mat or subsoil. That's all that organic stuff that's not worth anything, it gets scraped off. You can see it's somewhere between 2 and 2.5 feet on this project until you get to the better stuff. And then there's also the bottom of the pit. You can see that we dug anywhere between 4 and 7 feet on these pits. And then there's just a profile for each one of these pits. I think the most interesting to note is how similar they are. When the color changes, that means the material's changing. But if you were to, we won't look at each one of them, but if you were to thumb through, you would see that they're very similar. You have about 6 inches of that forest mat, and then another 2 inches of the subsoil, and then you get down into what they call a well-graded sand with some silt in it. But what's interesting is that a lot of boulders found in that layer, if you're to read through. So there are a lot of boulders on this site. So it will be an issue. They're gonna be the kind of boulders that can be moved easily. But I think that we have to look and have a smart approach to how we write the specs. What do you think, Bob, for the site contractor?
Sure, I mean, the boulders are a double-edged sword. They also, when you look at this soil quality that's here, if you were to crush the thing with those rocks, it would actually make a very good rock. So,
It just depends on how the site contractor looks at it.
yeah, exactly. Or how you structure it.
Right. You want to talk about Majid's recommendation that
Yeah,
sums up all these?
So he sums up, on the bearing side of things, it's 3 kips, 3,000 pounds per square foot. That's a good number, and it's likely to go up when he comes and does a more sophisticated test during construction, so, or at some point prior. So that's a real good number.
It's enough for us.
There's no bearing concern. The site meets the criteria straight out of the ground for common fill. So anywhere we have to common fill, we don't need to do anything to it. It just misses the criteria for normal structural fill for a building like this due to the percentage of fines, the stuff that's almost like powder. It's a little over 10%, just a little. So if it was our job, we would crush and blend it, and because it's by mass, we add rock in it. All of a sudden, the percentage fines goes down. So it's very usable. It's a nice site. I mean, nothing here concerns me at all.
So if you flip to the last 2 pages, look at these graphs. It gets to what Bob was speaking about. The first graph is for ordinary fill. And without going into a lot of detail, if you're to look at these graphs, you can see these 2 outside lines. So those are the lines that define what's suitable. And the 2 lines within are lines of 2 test pits where they took the test. So if the line falls in between these, it's suitable. So you can see here on ordinary fill, it falls well within the boundaries, and it's good. Now if you flip to structural fill, which is the next one, you see the 2 samples. You can see that down at the bottom it just starts to fall out, and that's what Bob was talking about. So the opportunity is there for a process where we could use everything on site. I think that we need to try to push it that way, and that'd be the smartest way. And it would involve some crushing. Crush some of those boulders.
Then he gets all his subgrades for his pavement with parent material. That's great. I mean, it's a
Yeah,
good situation.
It can definitely be amended.
Yeah. So
Excellent.
Yeah.
So that's the soil in a nutshell. Any questions on that? Okay. So let's talk about the design. And you have in front of you the design that we've been developing. What we call the attic scheme has the ground level in the attic. And I'm just gonna go through some numbers. If you go back to this topic sheet, just to put some numbers in your head as you prepare for our discussion. So the schematic design, the schematic design estimate of October 5th. The construction cost stands at $9,500,117, and the total project cost at $12,740,439. Do you remember that breakdown we looked at, of the difference between construction and project? Okay, those are those numbers. The build.
Copies of those too.
And now this is important to understand. To have what I want you to do is have an understanding of everything, so your decision is based on everything and not just isolated pieces. So the building cost per square foot, just for the construction of the building, comes out to $410 per square foot, which is $7,092,211. Why that's interesting, and I think Taylor will speak for this, is that's on the low side of the scale, 410. Now, the overall site cost is $2,167,306. That's on the high end. And our
Big
test,
site number.
What's that?
So it's a big site number.
Yes, and that vetted out in our testing and our septic and topography we have to deal with. So, that's an interesting thing to note, is that, we have an expensive site. No two ways to look at it. It will be helped by the water, that'll help a lot, but, what I'm trying to tell you is, I don't think design scheme will affect the site cost much. Maybe a little bit at the retaining wall, but it's gonna end about there. We can't do anything about the septic, not much about the grading outside of the retaining wall, but that is what it is. And then if you look at the 410, I think it's gonna be tough to bring the number down square foot wise to below 410 these days. Maybe a little bit, but that'd be a challenge. And then just to refresh you on some of the alternates, the cost of that 30 by 40 foot auxiliary building, if chosen, was $314,000. The cost of the cruiser port was $227,000, and cost of the solar photovoltaic array was $175,000. So bringing this forward, what we just learned, I want to talk about where we go from here. I broke it down to 3 options that I could pursue for you, and I need your guidance. Option number 1 was continuing to design development with the scheme we have, and see where we go from there with the numbers. I don't think we need to spend any time on that one, it's pretty self-explanatory. Option number 2 would be a redesign with a smaller program. My goal would be to, after careful study, my goal would be to remove 2,000 square feet of program space to make the building 2,000 square feet smaller, and that would approximately cut out $850,000 to go that route. Where would the space come out of? A smaller meeting room. This is an easy one. I would remove the locker. I know I have locker expansion room coming out. Smaller administration and roll call areas. What I mean by that, they would stay very much the same, but they each have an office that maybe could go, so that there would be like one less office in those areas. No attic design. This would be all on the ground level. This one here. And then the auxiliary building would be needed. So we're going to add back 314. However, I could chip away at that 314. I haven't figured out yet what that road going up would cost to access the attic level. I think I could get, this 314 could maybe come in half. So you could be looking at a potential, $900,000 move by reducing the building square footage by about 2,000 with the changes I said, and making a one-level scheme, because part of the getting the square footages would be the stair goes away, and the room for the elevator goes away, and things like that. That'd be number 2. Number 3 would be to redesign it as a 2-story building with a stair and an elevator, and put more spaces upstairs. In this scheme, we would have to divide the program into 2 levels. I want your feedback on that, because that's a big move, and if it's not welcomed by the committee, I don't see a need, and I don't see that we pursue that one if they're not going to be up for that. But the only thing I could see moving up to a 2nd floor, or have seen before, is administrative and investigative. Other than that, I think that everything else would have to stay downstairs where it is. Now, and then of course there'd be no drive-up attic on this one, and if you'd want that function, you'd have to do the auxiliary building. So the 314 is coming back. And on this one, the savings would only be in about a $500,000 range on that one. This one here, I really don't know if we could save much with it. So, having said that, yeah,
Your savings up here, 500K,
yeah.
has to be reduced by the 314 if you have the building, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
except I can chip away at that
I
a
know
little
you
bit.
said that, okay, so there's not really a significant savings.
No, not on this one, it really isn't. There's not.
Neither on the second, number 2, there's not a significant savings. We're talking about $500,000 on On a project this size.
Yeah, if you subtract the full 314, but some of that's gonna go back. That one would probably approach $700,000, $800,000. And so, if you look at the plan, I don't, the detention / Sally Port really can't change, unless you wanna get rid of a cell, or if you wanna get something. Evidence storage, I think we've really, we've tightened that up. Dispatch, armory, all that stuff is where it's gonna be. It would, the reduction would really have to come out of the meeting room, and then a little bit out of admin, investigative, or admin and patrol, or admin and roll call, and then the stair, the elevator room. Those are the 3 directions I could go in. If you want to ask any questions or have comments, so.
Well, before we go into that, well, let's talk about money a little bit, and
Yeah.
then that way, because I think at the end of all of this, it needs to be sellable and doable. So, right now, we're looking at the project costing 12.7 thereabouts.
Right.
The plan is to take 2.5 million out of capital stabilization. And then in a meeting that I had with Jessica, Kim, and David, I wrote Kim an email, and by accident, it was misinterpreted, and I wrote it the wrong way. But anyway, when we had this meeting, she was thinking that the committee wanted to pay for the whole thing without going for a debt exclusion, and I don't think that was the intention for anybody here. I don't think it's feasible, doable, and we never know where we're going with the budget. The assessor's office has been putting the abatements too high. So there's a savings of 1.4 million in there right now. It's a one-time line item. Although Kim doesn't recommend we use the whole 1.4, she recommends that we use another million. So we can spend down about 3.5 million off the cost of the 12.7.
That's pretty good.
Sure is. Well, let me ask you, is it DEQ or DEP that has given you provisional approval for the treatment of the water?
Yeah, DEP.
And I know there was a sum of money allocated, was it
There was 650,000.
for that, or was it a bunch of other things?
No, it was 650,000 allocated for a study to do, an engineering study for a new building, that $3 million building. Plus, included in that was money to upgrade the existing filter site, but that's off the boards now. They don't even want us to operate that.
Yeah.
So in essence, they're telling us, you guys are free as long as you continue what you're doing.
Should manage it well.
Yeah,
For 2 years.
yeah, and then they're gonna take it completely away.
And hopefully they push Fall River to straighten their act.
Well, Fall River has helped out quite a bit because of the new tower with the aerating. And we're in the process of trying to test and pick up water coming off that tower, which should lower it considerably. But again, I mean, we're in the colder weather now, so you know how it is.
Would any of that money be available for this?
Well, I don't think we're gonna need it. We're not gonna need it. I mean, based on what we got from DEP today, it doesn't look like we need anything.
So let's call that 500,000 for the sake of this discussion. So now you're at 2.5 plus the 1 plus 5, so that's 4. And Andy, I think we had a preliminary discussion about some of the, what do you call it, reserves or?
Contingency.
Contingencies,
Yeah.
we have a
Yeah.
high contingency in design and construction.
Yeah.
Which we can ratchet back after we go through DD.
Right, so I'll explain those to you one more time. Go ahead, Taylor, I don't want to cut you off.
No, that's what I was going to say. My only question would be, any of that money that we were talking about for the water line, would any of that come out of this budget?
Well,
Go ahead, Bob.
I think personally, the 200,000 would be, that's currently in this now, would be put towards the water line, so. it would-
That's what you were gonna cost anyway.
That's what we're gonna cost anyhow, so that would push comfortable. And I was speaking before about maybe the 650,000 pushing back towards the water line also.
Well, that should
Yeah.
make it easier.
Yeah, we can't.
But that's 2 separate projects.
I know.
Yeah.
like, in my head, we have to know, we can't do what I think is available, right? So right now, we know that 3.5 is available. And I think that we really need to lay down and think about that for a minute, because, yeah, anything can change at any time. Yeah, we can get that money back at town meeting, but we don't know if something else, or if DEP is gonna make a contingency on something else, that we have to have money set aside if ever, you know, like, because they were talking about that.
There's gonna be a slight cost to reactivate that.
Right, so we don't know how much is available, but right now, we know definitely we have 3.5 million available.
So right now, and I used the high number, we were talking about 12.7 for our project, that's without an elevator. Now, I just, if we do go to an elevator, you know, we can obviously cancel that out today. You know, we're thinking another 120 grand, so call it 12.9. With that 3.5 out, you're at 9.4. So you're under that 10 million number that you wanted to be at, with the 3.5 added.
And the way the contingency works, we got 10% design and estimating in there right now, because we're in schematic design. So the 10% design and pricing contingency for unknowns and just things that aren't developed yet. And then there's, the owner's contingency is another 10?
Another 10.
Another 10.
You know, we would recommend, you know, not going any less than 5% when you go into, you know, construction. So it's 10% now, 1.1 million, so cut it in half, you know.
And then the other contingency that's in there is they have a 2.6% escalation. That would cover the increase in cost due to time.
Correct.
So you wouldn't get hit with that. That's also built into this. You don't want to think you can use it, but that's the comfort of knowing, yeah, this cost that today, but what if we don't build it for a year? That's what that's for.
Escalation is summer of 2018.
Yeah, I think that's at 2.7 or something from memory.
Yeah.
2.6?
Might be 2.5. I don't have the percentage, I just have the number.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do the math.
I think it's 2.6.
Andy, and maybe Bob, what's really driving that 2.16 million for site costs? What's the big driver on that?
Topography.
Square footage of site?
Topography.
Square footage of building site or square footage of manipulated site?
Not to get off topic, but one thing I would recommend, and I wasn't recommending it before, is that we remove the visitor entrance from Chase Road.
From Chase?
Yes, and just have a visitor's entrance from Memorial. The one that's close to the patrol entrance, if you look on the site plan.
Didn't we say that before? We were contemplating that,
You were
because I said that it's so much traffic between, yeah.
Yeah, and it's fairly close, it's a little too close to Memorial and Chase intersection.
Yes.
And it's gonna be an expensive entryway because it crosses the drainage trench.
I'm all
Getting rid of which entrance? I'm sorry, here, in the right front?
Chase, yeah.
Yeah.
Another way you could reduce your footprint on the site is take this access road right out and put your vehicle storage in that auxiliary building, right? You get rid of that drive up rear and back.
Yes, if you chose that, yep.
The second floor drive up.
Yeah.
But anyways, this site has everything, Bob. It's got topography,
I know.
it's got boulders in the soil, it's got no town sewer, it's got no town water. You know, it's completely raw, it needs to be all graded, and it's just, it's fairly large, so it's got it all.
But I think that we, if you look back at the current police station, and a lot of the stuff that should have been in that police station was taken out, and then it was built. I don't think the committee should fall into the same pit as the last building did.
No, and that's why I was wondering about that, because if you look at your number, you're $410 a square foot for your building space currently as it lays, which is a great building. You're at $144 per square foot for building space, not total lot space. But saying 15,000 square foot building at $2.16 million, it comes out to, for a 15,000 square foot building, $144 a square foot. You're pretty much a quarter, you're actually over a quarter of what you're spending for concrete and buildable space. It's a big number for site.
It is.
Yeah, we're used to seeing around $100 a square foot.
Exactly, that's just what I was gonna say.
I don't think we've picked the plan apart to death either yet, right? So we haven't,
Yeah, it's still a schematic
we haven't
design.
looked at, you know, try to get rid of as much of subsurface retention as we can,
Yeah.
you know, right? Because
Well,
this is less costly than that,
This-
right?
This
Absolutely.
number
This
is
getting
a
shifted down
schematic
here, let's
design
go
number.
because
Look at this.
You gotta use it to make a decision if you wanna go in
Right.
DD with this, and hopefully you can bring it down, but it's where you need to be to make a decision whether you wanna advance out of schematic.
Yeah.
I agree, I think, like, right now, we need to make a decision on whether we're gonna stick to this plan, knowing that we're in the ballpark of 9.2 mil. And have them keep working on this design and this, or we need to talk about cutting it down.
So here's my only fear about moving forward, is that with the building cost number where it is per square foot, the only real mover is gonna be a reduction in footage. I can't, if you compare the building to site costs, I don't see myself getting those site costs down
No.
somehow. The only real mover is gonna be a reduction to get the building down about 2,000 square foot less, and then that would be a real mover.
So Carlton, the last time we were here, you were talking about possibly moving things around and moving things upstairs.
Yeah, I
How
don't-
are
I
you
don't-
now?
No, I thought of, since the meeting, I thought a lot about that, and I don't think moving administration and detectives upstairs is going to work well with locker rooms and workout rooms. Those are inconsistent with each other. So,
I wonder if we, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I wasn't quite following what you said before, as far as the square footage cost.
I'm just relating how much, for a 15,000 square foot building, how much site work we're doing, and what the cost of the site work is for the size of the building. It's not necessarily proportionate. It is because of this, the lot that is there,
Right.
but, you know, because we're adding on meeting room that we need parking for, there's things in here that we've added extra that I don't know.
But the whole purpose of the meeting room,
Personally, if we could cut out of the site and not touch the building,
Not touch the building.
because the building, I think, is what we need.
Yeah. And the
If
meeting
we can
room
find
is-
some money out of the site, and like I was just talking with Bob, if we can tweak the site a little bit and save a couple $100,000 out of the site, instead of doing major renovations of things, to save the same $200,000 by putting a chief's office on the second floor, or $500,000 by cutting off that, but still adding an accessory building that's not gonna be heated, that we don't want in the first place.
Right, and part of the size of the building with the meeting room, that's for the community itself, for meetings
Correct.
and so forth. So I hate to even lose, the fact that when we first talked about a double-story building, I think that's the ideal thing here.
Right.
It gives the police department what they need, it gives the community a place to meet.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see, I have a hard time
Really like to go to the site and
monkeying
with
with
the
it.
fine tooth comb and see what we can get on this.
This is, like Andy said to me today, we were discussing it, and he said, you know, this is a guy that had no time to develop this, there's no iteration. We would iterate on a plan like that a dozen times, right?
Yeah, the problem with these plans are, they look real finished and professional,
Yeah.
but they're schematic.
To the layman, they look great.
Exactly, and you.
Everything's on there you need, but
Yeah,
it's
if you
not-
start, if you
it's
start
not
looking,
massage.
Exactly, that's what I was trying
if
to.
you start looking close, you can say, why did he do this and why did he do that? Well, because it's schematic design, we had to meet it, we met the deadline and we wanted to get, we're at schematic design, and that's why there is that 10% contingency.
Right.
And
And that's what I was gonna say too, it's, you know, I think if you were given approval to move forward into DD today, you know, it's also your job to look at the plan, the building and the site, and massage it and say, how can we save some money
Oh,
in these
definitely.
spaces? You know, you're looking at, you know, talking about 2,000 gross square feet, maybe you don't have to lose any program space and you get out 400, just by moving things around, that's part of the process, would be taking place to help bring that number down.
Even like massaging your sprinkler, or getting rid of your sprinkler, moving your wet
Exactly.
well, things that may be small program space, but are expensive program space, like Bob was saying earlier.
Yep.
So we need to have a decision from the board, for the committee, to decide in which direction we want this to go into. Are we ready to go into design phase?
It would be design development.
Right.
That still leaves us an opportunity to massage the site a little bit.
Absolutely.
That's where you get into the nitty gritty of everything.
What-
Yeah.
And we're talking about going with the original two-story plan, right?
Yep.
The one that's in front of you.
But
Yeah, not moving program space upstairs, not doing a one level build, nothing. The one that we've been working on since we made the decision to go with the attic, that's the one we're gonna move forward if the committee so intends.
Would the committee be amenable if there's changes to the way the program space lays out in the attic? In other words, if this room, so now everything's still the same, because you still need the sally port, so that doesn't change. The drive under your cell spot is still in the same place. It's what you use on that second floor. Instead of a maintenance bay, it would be whatever.
Yeah, you're looking for ways to reduce that site cost.
The only issue I would have is, are we then going to have this auxiliary building?
That would be a discussion where we would have, if you cut this off and you didn't have this, then you might need the auxiliary building. What's the price difference between the two? If you're cutting off $500 million from the way the site layout is, and it's costing you $300,000 for the auxiliary building, what do you save? Obviously, you're saving $200,000, but it really,
Yeah.
is that
but now you have another building you have to maintain.
Right.
That's another roof, everything.
exactly,
I think,
that's the worst.
And then you don't have
Mhm.
that space to.
No, I got you.
so I think that if we go to the design development part, and there are major differences between what this committee approved and what you're gonna be working on, I think that needs to come back to committee
Oh, yeah.
for approval. Because I'm saying, yeah, okay, look at the site and get into the nitty gritty of it and try to save money that way, but I'm not saying to change any of the program space inside. Until,
No, I think the program space that we have is what we need.
Should we take a show of hands or something?
no, we need to have a vote, a formal
Take-
vote,
okay.
yeah. If everybody's ready for that.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to go on with D&D.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye. What do you want to do with, whether we do a well line, or if we want to do water line, because some of that's going to go into program and design. So it kind of needs to be discussed.
Well, I don't have a problem with the concept. I want to see how we raise the money for it. I think that's a big issue that we have to, but I think that, personally, I think the concept is not bad. I mean, it's a betterment for the community as a whole.
You have the paperwork in front of you on a debt, on what it would be, not for debt exclusion,
Right.
on what it would be for,
Well,
us to take it out of taxation.
yeah. One of my concerns is taking it totally out of general taxation. I have a problem with that. I think we should be thinking of betterment. I think we should be thinking of maybe hydrant taxes, that type of thing, along the line, because these people who own these properties got a tremendous boost in their Bob said, just not only the water, but the fact that when it comes to septic issues, they're not gonna have the septic issues that they would if they had a well. And I think we have to look into that, the idea of possibly raising some of the money through betterment and other taxation like that.
townspeople have to vote for it, right? Okay, and the people that are on any one of these lines, the majority of these people have, well, everybody has wealth, but the majority of them had no
No issues with it.
desire
Right.
for a water line. And when you slap that on them, that's, in my opinion, that's something that would cause the project, that particular project, that project to fail. I mean, because this is a betterment for the town of Freetown. We wouldn't be talking about this if the town wasn't putting up a police station and the town wasn't anticipating a couple other buildings up here. So, you know, that's how people think when you're taking money out of their pocket.
You know, you also could have a betterment that it's not a betterment unless you tie in. So there's a fee to tie in, the fee would be $5,000 to tie in.
Well, there's always a fee to tie in.
Understandable, but the fee to tie in would go towards paying down the debt exclusion. So those people who chose to tie in would pay the fee, and that would go towards paying off the debt exclusion. The people that said, no, my well's fine, I don't want to tie in, eventually they probably would
Be better
anyhow.
over time, so to speak. Be better over time.
Betterment over
Yeah.
time, yeah. When wells fail, because wells do
You incur the
fail,
revenue over time.
they would have the option of, do I want to replace my well pump and go through that expense, or do I just want to pay the one-time $5,000 tie-in fee? And, you know, I think they said 100 households on it currently, not to mention businesses. $5,000 a piece, you're talking $500,000 at some point.
I think we should be looking at a hydrant tax, generally through the community as a whole. It's a reduction on your insurance when you have within 1,000 feet when you have it. It's a way to.
What do you think it would reduce the average person's insurance?
I can't say for sure. I know in reading a case, Swansea has a $100 per house hydrant tax on any house that's within 1,000 feet of the hydrant that doesn't have water.
Well, I think you should go to an insurance company and ask them, because I don't think that the reduction in your homeowner's insurance is that. Because I have a hydrant near my house, and my reduction was like $25. So
So,
you should go to an insurance company and find out the exact amount.
but I think that's basically a standard situation in most communities.
We're not, I mean, we're not talking about $500,000 a year. We're talking about $223 at the most. That's it.
Well, I think.
Out of
these are-
taxation, that's what
I
we're
think
talking
these-
about.
These are all things to be looked at. I don't think we just go down a road blind. So I mean, I think there's ways of develop, the idea of a water line, I think in theory, that's a good idea. But I think we have to, you know, put it in perspective.
Okay, well, we can't go forward with design development without knowing if we're gonna do, I mean, we can, but we need to give these people a direction. Either we're gonna do a well and the fire pump, or we're going to do a water line and not do the well.
Well, I think they can go forward. Correct me if I'm wrong. They can go forward.
I think the designers will get to a point where
Correct.
they'll need to know one
Right.
way or the other.
But it's not tonight.
No, I mean, that's really for Andy to comment on, I mean, when they need that information.
Yeah, I have plenty to do where I could stay away from that, but we'll have to know soon.
Lisa, excuse me, you just mentioned $227.
$223,000 out of our budget
For,
to pay for the water line,
oh, okay.
Each year.
at the most, then it goes down.
It goes down. But you know what, let me say another thing. The more things that you add to take money out of people's pockets,
Mhm.
the more objection you're gonna have.
Absolutely,
When you
this will
start
not
telling,
pass.
when you start telling people that they're gonna have to pay a tax on their hydrants, they're gonna have to pay a tax on a water line that they didn't want, you're opening the door for failure. Not only failure for the water line, but probably failure for the police department, and that's what you gotta be careful of.
Well, we all, look, like I said when we started this conversation, this is not only about the police station. This is about anything, other building that we could put over there. I mean, we already know the schools have bad water, or the elementary school gets bad water that needs to be treated. So we already know that. You open the police station and they start getting bad water, who's gonna take the rap? This committee right here.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you.
No, I know, I'm
Yeah.
like, we can't wait on this. We're not, like I said, we're not talking, God, we spend more money on a bulldozer and a dump truck per year than we would on something that's gonna be long-lasting, but for generations to come, so.
I hope I don't make the impression that I'm against this. My thing is, though, I wanna look at the facts, okay, that's my personality. I wanna run through my mind what's going on, and then make a permanent decision. Okay, that's my, I mean, this is the first I heard of this, okay, tonight. And I'm not prepared to go and say, I'm gonna make a decision one way or the other. It seems a good idea. I'm not gonna.
Well, you're gonna have to look at the numbers too,
Right, exactly.
because I didn't come up with the numbers, they
Right.
came up, Unibank came up with the numbers.
Yeah, I'm not,
Okay.
no, but.
I didn't
I'm
want
just-
you to think that I
Oh,
pulled this out of.
No, I understand that, but like I said, this is the first I've heard of this, and my personality is, I wanna stew on it a little bit.
Charlie, I want to tell you, this is brand new, because the water department heard about it about a week ago.
Right, when I came
That's
to them and
because-
asked them.
Right.
Asking us to come up with, you know, routes that if they wanted water. So this is all brand new to everybody.
Right,
Okay.
I understand, I'm not into some kind of conspiracy theory or anything like that. I'm just saying, that's my nature, I wanna look at the all, you know.
Yeah, you could move forward, and if a few, you know, a couple weeks, if you had an answer,
Oh, yeah,
you'd be okay.
yep,
If a decision can't be made tonight.
right. How much of an issue does the school have?
No, they're groundwater.
Well, yeah.
They treat it and they get some water in there, so.
And, there's probably some fire protection issues also.
That's what I was thinking.
Take that, looks cool. Agreed.
Okay, just know, again, that we're gonna need a decision one way or the other, sooner rather than later.
Sure.
Okay,
If we gave you a decision to go tonight, no, I was gonna say explore the water line, and then really funding of it's gonna come down to the Board of Selectmen, not this board. So what this board's decision is really independent of what the Board of Selectmen's decision is. So Board of Selectmen's one gonna be funded. Coming up, we'll try to fund it.
Certainly, this board can say, hey, we're all in favor of a water line.
exactly.
This board could vote tonight and say, we want to move forward with having Andy design a water line.
Right, but
How
that
it gets
doesn't, it
funded
doesn't
doesn't-
mean anything, because it's either the Board of Selectmen or it goes to a town meeting vote. You know, so we can all be in
But it
favor of
also,
this.
it also gives a direction to the select board, even though they're all sitting here,
Well,
that
we're all sitting here, so
we're
you
all,
guys can make your own
we're
vote.
in favor of doing the water because we think it's important.
I think that's been, I can't speak for you two, but I think that's the general direction we're moving into, is we're in favor for the water. It's just, Charlie wants to explore, and I agree, we should explore how we're gonna pay for it. And it might be this, it might be this, it might be this, but it might be something else too, that we haven't even thought of yet. It might be somebody else that wants to help pay for it, because they're putting a project in or something.
I think one of the things that we want to do is there a grant, or is there like a?
Absolutely.
Grant.
But that's not to hold this board
Right,
hostage,
right, I
that's
mean,
for,
yeah, and I mean, I'm not opposed to them going forward with the idea that we're gonna have a water main. Yeah, I'm not opposed to that, but I think final decision, I think we wanna get our ducks in the row.
oh, absolutely.
Can I speak for the water department?
Yeah,
The water department has no money in the game here,
absolutely.
as far as this this line. This project line is a need for the town. That's the only reason why the water department was asked to come here tonight.
Mhm.
Okay, so, I mean, just so everybody knows. All right.
Yep, I agree. Anything else? Anything else, Andy?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
So, I'll just, have a couple more things, real quick. Schedule-wise then, Andy, now that you're into DD, where do you see your schedule falling out for end of DD and then into CDs?
Can I have Dan send you something on that?
Yeah.
He's already started working on it,
Okay.
anticipating what might happen tonight, and a few
Okay.
different scenarios. We'll circulate that, Wednesday, but the beginning of next week, we'll
Okay.
circulate.
I think that, yeah, that would be helpful, just
Unless he wants to work Friday.
because then we can work backwards for when we need to land that special
Yeah,
town meeting.
Dan's already started that.
Okay. All right, that was it, I just wanted to touch on schedule, so.
He actually wanted me to bring it up, so thank you.
I know we were talking about it, so,
Yeah, Dan loves schedules.
but it was, you know, pushed off a little because of the decision-making we had, and I wanna make sure we're back on, you know, a schedule, so. Our original schedule's been pushed off.
Absolutely.
So when is our next meeting and when do you need a decision whether we're doing well or water?
I'll defer to you, Andy, on that.
So, what I want to do is, I guess for our next meeting, what would be most useful is that I start looking at some of the questions that I know are out there, like, you know, envelope issues with the building, exactly what the envelope's going to be made of, you know, windows, siding, whatnot, have a good meeting on that, and take a deeper delve into the site, maybe flush out some of these issues where we think we're going. I would think this week's kind of shot, so.
Yeah, I mean, what if we looked at 3 weeks out from now?
Yeah.
Just because this week is kind
Yeah,
of,
that's about right.
Just 2 weeks before Christmas, or a week before.
the week of the 11th,
We-
not work, won't work.
No, I'll be in Miami for Dolphins game.
Or the week of the 18th.
Oh,
I'll make it work.
Bob,
What-
that's
what
more for
day?
you.
Tuesday,
Don't worry.
we can do Tuesday the 19th.
That's all right with me, Tuesday the 19th.
Oh, don't worry about me.
I understand Lisa being the chairman is gonna throw a Christmas party for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. The 19th?
Yeah, at 5:30.
Good thing you said Lisa as chairman and not Lisa as just another typical female, because then you'd really be in trouble.
I would never say that.
Yeah.
Hey, I live with my wife and I have 2 daughters, so.
What is that, the 19th?
I'd get slapped right
Yeah.
down. The 19th, at 5:30, you said?
Yeah, and Andy, I don't know if you answered, but as far as when you need to know on the water line, do you have an idea on that?
It'd be great if we knew at that meeting, or
Thank you.
that, well, we-
That's plenty of time, yeah.
yeah.
Is that it?
That's it.
Motion to adjourn from someone?
Make the motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?